Hey guys, and welcome to part 4 of my Leakfinder giveback series. This time I'll be reviewing two games at the $30 level. The first game will be versus a fish and the second game against a regular. So we open 6-4 off on the button, which is fine. We get 3-bet to 80. So I think I would call 6-4 suited in this spot, but fold 6-4 off. It's just not going to play well enough, and it would be pretty hard for us to realize our equity. So I would just muck it pre. Our opponent open jams the flop, so we have a pretty easy fold. But when I see a hand play this way, I make a mental note that this guy might be a spazzy type player. 9-5 off, I think calling and folding are pretty close readless, and it depends on how well you think you can play post flop out of position. King 5 off on the 8-7-4 two hearts. I think I would check back. We have some showdown value and added equity with our gotcha, but I don't think we can call a check raise profitably, especially without a heart in our hand. On this particular board, there are many draws that would opt to check raise, and I think we realize our equity versus them better by checking back. So villain check calls the flop. So on this turn, he's either got a piece of the board that he's not folding, or he's got a draw that we're ahead of probably. So I think we can check back and bluff catch on blank rivers. For example, if the river is an ace and he bets 100, I'm never folding because he will be really polarized to 4x or missed draws, and we all know trips are hard to get, especially trips 4 after flatting in the big blind, because most people fold hands like 9-4 off. So anyway, we check back and we actually get an ace river, and he bets. So yeah, super easy call. I guess this small sizing might mean he's got some 8x hands in his range too that are making a silly blocker bet, but on the other hand, we're getting a better price, and you could easily have a busted draw, so we're definitely calling here. I would make a note of this river sizing after seeing that hand. I think if we face a bigger bet later on, we should be more careful. So standard flat with Jack 7 suited in the big blind. Our opponent checks back to flop. I think we should check the turn. He checks back again. So all the way to the river, I think we played a hand pretty standardly, and we do want to bet the river. I think our sizing here is fine. We mostly are looking to get called by a queen or a king. I might actually bet 80 because I think both of those hands are likely calling anyway. So we get min raise on the river, and this is pretty annoying. So I think versus some people you can argue for making a disciplined fold here, even though we're getting 5-1, which means we only need to be right 16.7% of the time. I think there are people that would show up with 10x or better here like 90+% of the time. But given what we know so far about this guy, I think we should look him up here. Although I wouldn't completely hate folding, because this is not a very common bluffing line. So we make the call, and he showed up with a queen 5 off, which is a pretty serious tragedy as far as how we play the hand. So we can be pretty sure now that we're facing pretty bad opponent. So our opponent min raises to induce with 10-3 and flops a boat. And we get dunked into on the 7-4-4 rainbow. I think the only play is calling. We have showdown value and a lot of backdoor potential. On the turn, our opponent min bets, so I think again the only play is to call. We're basically getting a free card, which is what we want here with our weak showdown value and decent draw. So you go ahead and jam here. I don't like this. I don't think we want to force this guy to fold basically anything. And if he doesn't have a pair, we should have the best hand here anyway. So he calls us off with a7, which is not a huge surprise, I guess. And I really think we should have avoided this situation. So that would be it for the first match. We will now move to the second match, played against the reg. So for this match we have some stats. This regular is raising 80% of hands at the deeper stacks, but only 36% between 12 to 18 big blinds. In the big blind he's flatting 36% and 3 bets 40%. 20% being non-all-in 3 bets and 20% being shoves. He also have a very high ISO percentage at all stack depth. We have some post-flop stats, but I would refer to those if and when they become relevant. Against someone so aggressive in the big blind, I would probably just muck this pre-flop. I mean, 40% of the time we get 3-bet and have to fold, and then 32% we need to go to the flop with a very weak hand. You also mentioned that his fold to c-bet is 32%, which is not very high, so I would just fold here. But we do get a fold here, which is nice. Standard flat in the big blind with jack 6 suited. I'm contemplating whether we should check raise here. I think if we had a diamond in our hand, both donking and check raising are good here. We can donk a range of like queen 8, 10 8, and then hands like jack x with a diamond or 10x with a diamond, 6 7. We can't go too crazy though and do that with all of our jack x and 10x, because then we would be bluffing too much in this spot. So I think it's fine to just check fold jack 6 of spade here. So we get 3-bet to 70, which is an unusual sizing for a reg to 3-bet. I'm never folding king 9 here. He should have plenty of bluffs in his range, and this hand plays fairly well. So I would just flat the 3-bet. Queen 8 off with the 8 of clubs. I think I would be floating here against a 30 chips c-bet. It's one of the better unpaired hands in our range. Um, and according to your stats, his turn c-bet is only 30%, which is pretty low. We're getting 3.7 to 1, which are very good odds, and we're gonna get to the river often enough, given his barreling frequency, that I predict this call would be profitable. And not only because our showdown value and potential to improve, but also because of our opportunities to be bluffing on certain board runouts. Standard jam with ace-4 off. I think non-all-in 3-bet is fine here, especially if you think he's going to shove over a 3-bet with a wider range than what he would call a shove with. I think we should c-bet this board. I think your sizing is fine too. I might go just a little bit smaller, but I think it's not a big deal. So we get called and the turn brings another 7. So this is a spot I think where we should be thinking what our range looks like and what should be our overall strategy with that range. So on this turn I think I would be checking my entire range. I mean, if we 3-bet a hand like ace-jack off, it means we're going to get to this turn with a lot of ace-high hands. Those hands want to get to showdown, obviously, so I think it's important to check our strong hands here. If the only value hands we check are ace-high, we will be turning our hand face up, which is not good for us, of course. Basically, whenever one player has a capped range with mostly weak showdown value and the other player has a polarized range, it's going to benefit the polarized player, especially if he's in position. So I think we should avoid creating this situation. Also, it's a decent spot to just give up with hands like 10 deuce suited that we 3-bet bluff pre-flop with and c-bet the flop. If he checks back the turn, we will be leading the river with all of our value hands, and then we can use hands like 10 deuce suited for bluffing the river and balance our range there. So we check, which I like, and he checks back. The river is a deuce, and I think we have a pretty obvious check. He checks back and shows king queen. So I guess he thought he had the best hand here a lot, which is an okay assumption to make readless, I think. A lot of regs will slow down with their bluff on the 7th turn in our spot and then feel like it's hard for them to rep anything by betting the river. Although, like I said, we should be bluffing in this spot with the bottom of our range because we should get to the river that way with all of our value hands too. Pretty close between limping and jamming here, given that we're right on the border of being a Nash shove, and given that this guy has a high ISO percentage, so we get jammed on and we have to fold. Standard jam with ace-4 off. I think limping queen 6 here is fine. Gonna stab the flop and he folds. So king 5 off is a call for me here against the average reg. Regs usually raise call with king 7 off plus in this spot, so we should be rarely dominated here, and he's gonna have a bunch of worse hands in his range, basically every suited connector in the world, and hands like 10-8 off or Jack 5 suited. And it's not even that wider than Nash, because I think Nash has it as a call for like 10 big blinds, maybe even 10 and a half. So I would call here. I think limping 10-6 here is fine. We just want to make sure that we limp enough value hands that can call a raise. Because this guy, like you said, is isolating us a lot. So if I thought that his range was very unbalanced towards bluffs, then I would limp a very strong range and then mix in just a few weak hands until he adjusts. But anyway, if our plan is to limp only weak hands, then we're probably gonna get crushed. Checking back is fine, and on this board I don't think there is a lot we can do except check folding. So you see, ace king suited here, I think if your plan is to limp a wide range against this guy, then I would be limping ace king suited as well, especially if he's being very active in the big line when we limp. Basically, if your plan is to limp a wide range and then only trap him with your monster hand, so like 10 plus, 10s plus I mean, you're gonna get crushed. So I think I would have liked to see a limp here. So we get flatted, and this board is pretty nasty for our hand, so I think we should be checking back here and checking again, trying to get the showdown. Luckily for us, he shows up with king deuce suited and allows us to win with our ace high, which I think is probably bad, because this is the type of board where he just has to force us to fold our ace high. Jack 5 off, I think, is a little too strong to just open fold. I would probably min raise this. I think jamming is the standard play here, but you should also consider limp calling this hand. I think he would snap a jam king deuce through king 6 if you limp, and also hands like suited queens, suited connectors. If he's isolating a lot and you want to be limping a decent amount of hands, then I think it might be a good idea to limp a few of the decent kings as well. We get it in against king 6 and split the pot. Fine jam with 7-6. And we're definitely gonna check jam this flop. Unfortunately, we don't get there. I think I would limp here with pocket aces. Yes, it looks transparent, but at 6 big blinds, we're going to want to limp hands like 9-3 suited that can't jam but have okay playability. So I would still limp my monsters at 6 big blinds and jam those only at 5 big blinds and below. So if you think that limping aces is transparent here, it probably means that you're not limping any trashy hands at 6 big blinds, and I think you definitely should be, because basically it allows you to have a higher VPIP in the small blind at this depth, because if you can't min raise fold and you can't open shove a hand like 9-3 suited, then the only way you're going to be able to play it is by limping. And if you want to limp with 9-3 suited, then you should be limping with aces too. I think that overall this strategy is going to work well for us. Easy call, but we don't get there, so that would be the end of the second match. So I think there were some interesting spots to talk about in this video, and I hope you guys took something out of it. We are now halfway through this series, and I'm already thinking about ideas for my next series, so if you guys have ideas for things you'd like to see, please let me know. And until next time, keep crushing.